You are listening to One Nation Under Crime, a chronological true crime podcast. Each week, we go through our nation's history and discuss one case from each year starting in 1800. I'm Kayla.
And I'm Leah.
And this is going to be an interesting case this week.
I like interesting.
I did have to ask Leah to give us some insight into the case this week, which is not typical. Typically, Leah's not involved in the research.
I'm flying blind.
She didn't help very much, but she tried.
Well, it's not my fault.
Oh, I know, but
I do try.
So, as you can tell by the title of this week's show, we are going to be talking about the disappearance of the USS Epervier.
Ooh, that's a fun word. Say it again.
No, I'll say it later. There's two different ways to say it, so I'll get to it then. Because I'll go ahead and I'll say it here. Someone was not real happy with my pronunciations in our episode about Chicago. And
it hurt her feelings, guys.
It didn't hurt my feelings.
It ticked her off.
Yeah, I went from 1 to 100 in 2 seconds because, guys, this stuff is hard. It's not easy to say. There are names that are not easy to say. We do the best that we can. And if you even go and look up different pronunciations on like how to say things, there's going to be 20 different ways to say one thing.
Absolutely. Like my maiden name.
Exactly.
Ugh.
So, I mean, and my last name. I mean, dear gracious, nobody gets my last name right. And I get it. So, again, I am not a linguist, we'll say. I am not a linguist. So, sorry if I get things wrong. It's going to happen occasionally. We're not perfect. None of us are.
What?
So, especially you're not.
Oh.
Sorry. So, real quick at the top, before we get into the episode this week, we want to give you something.
We like to give people. We like to give.
It's completely free to you. We just need you to take 2 minutes out of your day to do something for us real quick. Since you're listening to us now, you're already in your favorite podcatcher. So you're on Apple, you're on Spotify, you're on Good Pods, who made us one of their recommended podcasts this past week.
No big deal. No big deal.
You know, you're already there. So go give us a 5-star review. Leave us a compliment, a funny joke, confess your undying love for us.
I mean, because we know you do love us.
Just make sure you put a comment in the review. Then screenshot your review and send it to us. You can send it to us via pigeon, but I mean, Twitter would work a little bit better.
Sure.
Instagram or email, email it to me along with your address. Then you will be the new proud owner of a super cool, weatherproof, dishwasher proof, fade proof, maybe life proof, not sure, ONUC sticker. You're already here now, so just a few clicks and you're done. And you know what? We're going to be super gracious, and we'll wait. You can do it now. So go ahead.
Do you need some theme music?
No, I think we're good.
Okay.
We'll give them, they need the silence
you don't like any of my ideas.
We just need they really need the silence to really think about what they need.
You're just jealous of my vocal abilities.
It's true. Okay. So y'all have had time. Have you finished? And you've sent it to me, and I should be getting a notification now. Yes?
I mean, some people are slow clickers. You sure no music?
Sure. No music. All right. So now that you've finished and you've sent it to us and you've given us our 5-star review and told us how much you absolutely adore and love us.
As you should.
We will move on to this week's show. We also, I know I kind of put it at the end of the episodes, we also have 2 patrons now, guys. So if you would like to join that elite club,
you can be.
It's not hard, guys. It takes just a few minutes. You can donate as little as $5 each month, and it really helps us out.
But we're okay with more.
I mean, I'm way more. I mean, more would be preferable. But like I said, you can donate as little as $5. You can donate as much as you want. And in the end, too, guys, that will help us with a separate Patreon podcast, which I've already told y'all about, and it'll be amazing. So that's up to y'all. And I guess that's all we really have up at the top. So we can get into the show. So our sources for this week, we have always the good Britannica, Britannica.com, the Naval History and Heritage Command site, which is history.navy.mil. And then we also have a website from 30A, which if y'all don't know, some people outside of the U.S. or on the West Coast might not know what 30A is. But 30A is like a region of the coast in Florida that's very, very popular. Sometimes can get a little pricey. I think is that where Rosemary Beach is and stuff like that? I think it is.
Yes, near there.
So
I've never been to 30A.
I've never been to 30A.
I go to Dolphin Island. That's my beach.
I mean, I've been to a few different ones. I like Destin a lot. I've always gone to Orange Beach, but or Gulf Shores, whatever they say. It's literally the same place. But so use 30A as well. The events for this week for 1815. We discussed it in the last episode, but James Madison is still the president. And remember that the vice president position is vacant, and it's not going to be filled until the next election cycle.
Just so weird to me still. That's just
And I don't know why they did that. I tried to look into it a little bit, but...
Like, why? Why?
I just,
Isn't that an important... Well, I mean, in Hamilton, John Adams doesn't have a real job
that's
anyway.
True. So...
Which we saw live.
Yes, we did just 2 days ago go to Atlanta and see Hamilton for the second time. And it was just as amazing as the first.
Yes, by the skin of our teeth, we made it.
It was very good. Shout out to the Atlanta Fox Theater. If y'all would like to be a sponsor of this podcast, we are always taking them. And I'm not really sure what company that was that they used for their beverages, but oh my gosh. And guys, just FYI, just a little tidbit for you. If you do go to the Atlanta Fox Theater, if you go to the bathroom, there's a bar right outside of the bathroom downstairs. It made my night, honestly.
Very cleverly done.
And I loved how...
I mean, not just a bar. Like you can get non-alcoholic beverages.
Yeah,
too.
you can get anything, any concessions, I guess is a better word. They have the concessions right there, right outside the bathroom. And that theater is just, I know we're getting way off track. It is gorgeous.
It's like you sit back in time.
It's so nice. I will say the only thing I did not like about where we were sitting is we couldn't see the ceiling. But I know that's real nitpicky because usually when we've gone before, we've sat up, kind of in not really the balcony, I guess, per se, but on the second level is where we've sat. And so this time we sat in orchestra but we were sitting in orchestra right where the overhang kind of started. Yeah. So while our seats were great and it was wonderful, although yet again, I had someone tall sit in front of me. I don't know why it happens.
I mean, but I did offer to swap with you for the second half.
At that point, it was fine. I had already gotten used to the woman that I was sitting by.
Who was precious, by the way.
She was very lovely. And her husband was a retired police officer. I believe
we know
it was
for
her
sure?
husband.
Yeah, I was going to say.
It might have just been her partner. But her partner that was with her was retired from the police force after 45 years, which was so crazy. And which is just amazing. And she was a teacher, and she was just lovely.
She was working on her EDS in special ed and math for middle school. And I'm saying, jewel in your crown right there. I went to school for education. I love the littles. Precious. I love high school. Middle school, they terrify me in large groups. Terrify.
She was just so precious. She was so sweet. And out there.
We make friends wherever we go, by the way.
She was out there doing the Lord's work, teaching math. But
that also terrifies me.
We did see Hamilton. It was amazing. it was so great. We love Hamilton. There's so many different facets to it. And it's funny because as we're watching it, so obviously the last time that we did go see it, we didn't have a podcast. Nope. And so as we're watching it, I'm looking at it and I'm like, hey, remember that right here Eliza's pregnant. And it's like, oh, that makes this even more sad. Because it was when, no spoilers, guys, because it was 200 years ago. But when her son Philip dies, there's a scene of it. And it's hard to think right there when you're like, oh, that's when she was pregnant. And she was pregnant with Phil, like with little Phil. Mm-hmm. And it's like, oh, that's...
Yeah, and there may have been mention of the muff at some point.
I know we did. Yeah, because they went through the
levy weeks.
And nonstop, they talk about levy weeks. So it was great. It was a fun time. Again, I'm not sure what the pre-mixed beverages are that they have. And they had a creamsicle mojito, which they were out of. And I was real upset about it. And then you
made it okay.
I know. I mean, I was all right. And then they had strawberry mango, which turned out to be pretty amazing. But I remember the girl at the concession, she like accidentally rang me up for 2. And then she goes, and I went, oh, I think you put 2. And she's like, oh, no. And I said, no. Just give me this. Just give me the second one. It's fine.
And then she shared with me.
I did.
Not a whole one.
I looked. Well, Leah had already had a glass of champagne, so she didn't need a whole one.
It wasn't actual champagne. It was Prosecco. Prosecco is not champagne.
And I forgot what you had gotten because originally you said champagne, but
yeah, it says champagne because they try to trick you, but champagne is not Prosecco.
No, it's not.
I'm bougie.
So Leah had. She's bougie. Leah had her Prosecco and sour cream and onion lace.
Y'all, they didn't. I know. I was like, oh, I am so high class, but y'all, I gotta have something in my stomach if I'm gonna have.
What was funny though is we were. She was in line behind me because I had gotten out of the bathroom before she did, and saw I was in line, and I got mine, and she asked me, she was like, oh, what did you get? And I told her, I was like, well, this is what I got. And then I looked down at the bottom and I went, if you get that, you can only have one because I see the alcohol content already. You cannot have more than one. So that is why she only had a portion of the one that I had after she had her Prosecco.
I'm not a drinker.
She's not. I'm very, I don't know. I come from a family of unfortunate high tolerances. So
there you go. High tolerance.
But
yes. No,
it is.
I will enjoy a beverage on occasion, but it will be a beverage.
And then we went after that. We went to this Irish pub. I think it was called Fado. It was Fado with like the little teals over it.
Yes.
And it was so good. Some of the best fish and chips.
It really was, and I've ever had. I will rate some fish and chips because I've had the real deal.
Oh gosh, I'm sure I need our and I know that y'all are listening. I need our friends over at Scottish Murders to tell us what the best like way for fish. I'm sure they would know like the best. Like, what is the best way for fish and chips? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, and it's in the batter, and it needs to be. I believe haddock is the correct fish. Like it can't just be like any fish. And I mean, like when you go to a chippy in Scotland, like they wrap it in the newspaper, and you've got your oil, like not your oil, your vinegar, and it's just so good, and it's crisp, and you don't want it to be soggy. I mean, if it's soggy, it's hard to find it good over here in the States. So if you ever come over, you're going to be disappointed.
This place made it. So the fit. Anyways,
yes, it was Irish, not Scottish. I will say.
Yes, true, but it was so like the fish. All of it was so perfect, and they had great mojitos. So, anyways, if you go to the Fox Theater and you are on Peachtree, you can just take a short 4-block walk in the other direction,
but not in 3-inch heels.
No. And that was her mistake. Well, and then you can go and you can eat at Fado, and it was amazing. And they had Manchester United was playing that day, so they have the Atlanta Soccer Club was there when we were on our way in. So, anyways, bit of a tidbit of our weekend.
But it was great.
Yeah, sorry, we had to. It was so fun. I love Atlanta. If you're ever, I could give y'all a guide to Atlanta. My boyfriend could too because he's from north of Atlanta. But if you ever go and you're there for breakfast, Cafe Intermezzo is it's fantastic. They have a coffee that has like an orange rind. Anyways, it's amazing. Back on topic, maybe.
For a minute.
Yeah, James Madison. Okay, yeah, we went over that. January 8th was the Battle of New Orleans, which was a part of the War of 1812. The war had ended on the...
I thought the war was over.
Yeah, it had ended on the 24th of December in 1814, but none of the combatants knew. And so Andrew Jackson defeated an invading British force at the Battle of New Orleans, which makes sense because... Again, not to like spoil anything, not to go back to Hamilton, but there is a part in the play. Sorry, earmuffs, if you haven't watched it, but you should have already. It came out in 2017.
And it's on Disney Plus.
Exactly. And I mean, you have no excuse now. It's been on Disney Plus for over a year. But there's a scene that's not on the track or anything like that. And it's when John Lawrence dies. And in the letter, which is an actual letter that came from John Lawrence's father, he says the war was already over, but like they didn't know that the war was over. And so I have a feeling that's kind of common.
It's common in that time, yeah. Unfortunately.
Right. So then January 30th, the U.S. Library of Congress is reestablished after our episode last week. And Thomas Jefferson donated 6,487 books.
Wow.
So there was a second fire in 1851, and 2/3 of these were destroyed in that fire. But Jefferson's library is in the Library of Congress still to this day, and it's all behind like glass. And it's like this, it is truly one of the coolest things I've ever seen because it's like you can see both sides of the bookcase. It's all encased in glass, and it's so cool. And you can see, and they have like little cards that say like which, like if you can't read what the book is, it kind of says, this is what this is. And they're so beautiful, and they're well preserved, and they're in that glass that really like preserves them well. So it's really amazing. If you ever go to the U.S. Library of Congress, it should still be there. The last time that I was there, I saw it. I think it's a standing thing that's always there, but I'm not 100% sure. But if you ever do get a chance to go, just go to the Library of Congress in general. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah. I've never been there, but I've seen like video and such.
It is amazing. It is just so beautiful, and there's so much detail. It's one of those that you walk in and you look up at the ceiling, and you could just walk around looking at the ceiling because there's so much, like there are names on the ceiling of different authors and like literature. It's just so cool. And then you go, there's a place where you can't really go in the physical Library of Congress without having like a reason to be there for research. But there's a place where you go up the stairs, and they have beautiful marble staircases. It's just, it's the most beautiful building I've ever seen. And you go up to the top, and there's this place where you can kind of go in, and there's like a balcony over the top of the actual library, but you're in like a glass enclosure. So the people down in the library can't hear you. And you can see like the rotunda it is absolutely gorgeous, like to see it in person and to see like how massive it truly is. And they have like all of the major like I said before, like the literary people of our time, like Homer and everything. They have major statues of them that sit up in the rotunda, and you can kind of see all the way around to see who they are. It's amazing. Again, I'm obsessed with DC. It's an issue. To other people, not to me. I do. But most of them...
It's part of your charm.
Most of them, honestly, surround history. So I guess I'm consistent, if nothing else. Anyway, so February 6th, New Jersey issued the first American railroad charter to John Stevens. February 17th, the Treaty of Ghent is ratified by the U.S. Congress and signed by President James Madison, which officially ended the War of 1812, which was over a month after it had already been signed in Europe. So it had been signed in Europe, then brought over here. It was ratified and then signed again by James Madison.
Okay.
September 23rd, the Great September Gale of 1815 was the first hurricane to strike New England in 180 years. Which is very fitting.
Yeah.
As of recently, if you are not aware, we have had we've had quite the string of hurricanes lately, and we had another one that went to go hit New England again, which was, not common. This is the first time in a while.
What was its name?
I don't remember. They all have weird. Ida's what's coming now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Ida is hitting us
this was currently. I think it was Henri that hit.
Yeah, I believe it might have been. Ida is what is now currently raining on us.
Yes.
So we have definitely hit hurricane season hard. For us, it's not too bad because we're in Birmingham, so we just catch like the remnants of it. But
we just get the rain.
We get the flood
and wind.
Yeah, we get the rain, the wind, and flash flooding. So then December 25th, the Handel and Hayden Society is created, which is the oldest continuously ran performing arts organization in the United States. And it gave its first performance at the King's Chapel in Boston. And then this was just an undated event that happened in the same year, but the second wave of Amish immigration started from Europe to North America. So there was another wave, coming in. And our births for 1815, January 21st, Horace Wells was born. He was a dentist and an anesthesia pioneer. So
that goes hand in hand.
Yeah, so we've got a lot to thank for that. He's an Aquarius, for any wondering. And weird, fun-ish, I say fun-ish fact, it is unknown exactly how anesthesia works. Let that sink in for a moment, guys. You are being put to sleep, and it is not 100% known how anesthesia works. Also, other side of that, you can join my mind for this week. It's also not known how eels reproduce, but that's neither here nor there. I can't comprehend it. I've watched videos anyways. Nobody knows how eels reproduce. Anyways, it's fine.
And I'm the one that gets the text just on a random Friday night in all caps, period after each word. Nobody knows how eels reproduce. And that's the text. That's it. That's all.
And I will say that does tie into our story this week. So
sure.
I'm not completely going off base because it does tie in. So our death, one of the deaths for this year, again, guys, a lot of people are born and died in these years. A lot of them are politicians. And I mean...
Not that any death is insignificant.
Correct. It's just people will not find it 100% interesting, and it would take us forever to go through all of it. But December 3rd of 1815, John Carroll died, and he was the first American Roman Catholic archbishop. So, into our topic this week. We are going to discuss a different kind of topic. I, as y'all probably have gathered, I kind of like topics that border on the supernatural or the unexplained.
Yes, you do.
But don't skip over the episode yet, because this is more of a widely known phenomenon than anything. This week, we are going in depth into a few different cases.
So we're not going to the Catskills?
No.
Okay.
But we are going into depth into a few different cases, and we are going to end with the case of the USS, it's two different ways to say it, guys. It's either Epervier or Epervier. So it was originally, we'll get into it. It was originally owned by Great Britain, then the US took it. Anyways, so there wasn't a case again in this year as far as like a true crime or anything that had a lot of information to go off of. And, some of them were in similar areas that we had done before. And I can only give y'all so much information on one area. So we're going to try to go through this kind of as quickly as I can with what we have, because there is a lot of information to go with this. So this case is a mystery and a disappearance wrapped into one, because we are going to discuss the Bermuda Triangle and what it has to do with the disappearance of the USS Epervier.
You know, growing up, I always thought that the Bermuda Triangle was going to give me a whole lot more trouble than it ever has.
You want to know another one?
What?
Quicksand.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I thought I was
People made me think that this was going to be a much bigger issue.
Right? Me too. I haven't had an issue with it yet.
No, not yet.
In all of my 40-some-odd years of life.
Right. And with the topic this week, we are going to dig into a topic that is near and dear to Leah's heart. And
Sloths.
And that is the history and the beginnings of the U.S. Navy.
Oh, I have 2 Navy men that I love very dearly.
I will, as much as we love those 2 gentlemen, neither one of them were any help when I had a question.
They really were not. One of them was quite sarcastic and tongue-in-cheek.
He was.
Which makes me love him even more, though.
So, July 14th of 1815, the USS Epervier was last reported sailing through the Straits of Gibraltar after it left Algeria for Norfolk, Virginia, with 132 sailors and 2 Marines on board. From everything that I can find, no thanks to 1, the Navy, 2, anyone we know in the Navy, there are roughly, and I put that in all caps, 42 U.S. Navy ships that are missing or presumed lost.
I mean, my brother's estimate that he number. He
threw out a number.
He did, which was close to 42.
But not quite. But there are roughly 42 that are missing or presumed lost since the U.S. Navy was formed. And around 6 of them were supposedly lost in the Bermuda Triangle. So, keep that in mind. The military isn't really known in any country for transparency, so there really is no telling if these numbers are actual numbers or just the ones they want us to know about. Because I'm pretty sure I have it in here, but there's another number that's going to be a bit shocking to you. And I'll go ahead and tell you here. Leah's never going to guess the number.
500.
Nope. So there are approximately 3 million shipwrecks in the ocean right now.
Not just naval, just
shipwrecks, period. 3 million. 3 million. Million. Like, that's quite a lot.
That's a couple.
So yeah, there's really no telling. And yes, there are other ships that have gone missing in this time frame. We will quickly discuss one at the very end because it ties back to something that we've discussed before. But we are really just going to be going into U.S. Navy ships, and we're going to go into the history of that now. So the U.S. or the United States Navy, as defined by Britannica, is a major branch of the United States Armed Forces charged with the defense of the country at sea and the seaborne support of the U.S. military services and the maintenance of security on the seas wherever the interests of the United States extend.
I can sing the hymn.
We're good. It was on. We've got a lot of info to get through this week. I'm sorry. We got a lot, guys. And I know I tried to cut it down as much as I could, and we actually cannot go through the entire history of the United States Navy because it would take so long. Again, I'll do another episode later in Patreon. But I had to stop at some point with the history because
it gets very interesting.
It is interesting, and there's a lot to it, and there's a lot with the formation of the U.S. Navy, which is what we're really going to get into. That's interesting.
I still love you.
With some of our favorite people that we've discussed before. So it was on a Friday the 13th. In October of 1775, that a meeting in Philadelphia with the Continental Congress voted to equip 2 ships. They were to be armed with 10 carriage guns and swivel guns, manned by a crew of 80, and then sent out for 3 months to try and cut off the British Army who was trying to bring in equipment for the Loyalists. This was during the Revolutionary War. So, again, like I just said, it all ties to the Revolutionary War. British essentially controlled the waters at this time because they had more experience than the Patriots did on the water. Many of those in the Continental Congress didn't want to equip a Continental Navy because they hoped that there could be some reconciliation or agreement with the king.
Did not happen.
No. There was a small faction of men who were pushing to get soldiers out on the water. One of these men, who you might know because he later became president, was John Adams of Massachusetts. The argument from Congress was that it was too much of a bold move when the Patriots were already at a slight disadvantage in the war. After all, they decided to bite the hand that fed them to gain independence. And even though they were fighting the British, they didn't necessarily want to cut all ties with them because they kind of did need them for trade purposes later on. So while you're still at war with them, there is a smart side to still thinking, hey, even though we're at war, we might need them later. Like, we might need to give it a little time to cool off, but like, we don't want to destroy the British Navy that's coming over because we need it a little bit later on. And look at us now. 200 years later, still friends with the British. So, the formation of an official navy would imply independence of the colonies, and those who did not want the ones who didn't want to reconcile were the ones who were pushing for that independence. But the ones who did were timid to make that move. Mm-hmm. The most that Congress allowed was for each colony to obtain their own armed ships to protect their individual harbors and coasts, which would make it look a lot more like an individual effort than a collaborative naval force.
Which makes sense.
Yes. The first use of this occurred after the Battle of Lexington. The early naval battle took place right after the battle. 9 of the 13 colonies sent armed ships to protect trade on the sea. George Washington took over the Continental Army in July of 1775. Imagine his shock when he found out that the Continental Army of which he just took over had no ammunition.
Oh.
None. They had no ammunition.
Oh.
So, yeah, not great. He immediately dispatched ships from Rhode Island to go to Bermuda for gunpowder. And Commodore John Manley was the most successful.
That's a great last name.
It is a good last name. Commander of the ships. In one ship raid, Manley captured a British ship that had so many weapons and ammunition on it. It would have taken the colonies 18 months to manufacture the same amount that they stole from the British.
Wow.
Right. So on October 3rd of 1775, Rhode Island delegates put a proposal out asking for an American fleet as soon as possible because all of this was coming from Rhode Island. Rhode Island was kind of like, we're kind of the ones, running this show right now. We need more ships. We need help. The proposal was really vague, even for those who were pro-Navy. And Samuel Chase, a delegate from Maryland, said that it was, quote, the maddest idea in the world to think of building an American fleet. He ate his words later. The most that they could really hope for at the time was for there to be a short-term solution to what was going on.
Yeah, I mean, you got to start somewhere. You got to do something.
Yes. 2 days later, Congress received word that 2 British ships who were unarmed with ammunition were leaving England and on their way to Quebec. This was an opportunity too good to pass up, so a committee was formed to figure out how to take advantage of this intel. The committee were not only all pro-Navy, but they were all New Englanders. First, they recommended the governments of Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Connecticut dispatch armed ships to wait for the incoming ships. Second, they formed a plan for Congress to arm 2 ships to head eastward to intercept the British ships in order to obtain the supplies. Well, that plan sat for 8 days when a letter came from George Washington. Washington wrote that he bought 3 ships that were to depart from Massachusetts and intercept the enemy supply ships. Keep in mind, he bought those ships with Continental Congress footing the bill and did not ask.
Oh.
He just said, this is what we need. This is what we're doing. And I'm not sitting around for you in Congress to figure out this is what we're doing. You're not out here. We got to go. Like, too bad.
Gotta go. Gotta get the job done.
So literally the same plan that the committee came up with and Congress sat on, Washington said that he expected Congress to be hesitant on fitting warships. So he just did it on his own.
Well, there you go. He definitely believes in asking for forgiveness.
Instead of permission. This turned into a victory for the committee because there were already 3 ships headed out under Washington's command. What's 2 more? Which made this particular Friday the 13th a very lucky one.
Which is not, generally what people think. That's not the popular idea.
True. Friday the 13th actually are pretty lucky there. But anyways, the Continental Navy became more important than its opponents realized, and soon a naval committee was established to get together a fleet. This committee was in charge of purchasing, manning, outfitting, and operating the first ships of the Navy. The committee then drafted legislation, rules, and regulations to govern the Continental Navy. After all of this, Congress sent out more than 50 ships during the Revolutionary War. In other words, they cut supply lines and to steal contraband from around 200 British ships. 200 British ships. And 50 were coming from the colonies. So they did pretty well for themselves.
Yeah, worked out for them. Worked out.
Once the war was over, the Continental Navy was disbanded and the ships were sold. The first Congress to serve under the rules of the new Constitution thought a navy really wasn't necessary.
Why?
Of course, it didn't take long for them to realize that this was a big mistake.
Yeah.
Because Barbary pirates destroyed U.S. goods and Congress outfitted 6 frigates in 1794 and established the Navy Department officially in April 30th of 1798. For those who aren't aware, this is kind of around the Barbary War, and this was pirates operating from the coast of North Africa, and so they were intercepting a lot of U.S. ships, and they were stealing from them, and so that's kind of where you'll hear, when you hear anything about history, you'll have the First and the Second Barbary War. That's where this comes from. So the Navy Department was officially created in April 30th of 1798, which is really interesting because the Navy's birthday is considered October 13th of 1775, but it was not official until April of 1798. So over 20 years later.
Interesting.
Which is weird. I mean, it was at that time, it was done, but it was under the colonies. It wasn't under the United States. So it's very weird. It was the Continental Navy in October of 1775. It was not the U.S. Navy until 1798.
That was the first time it was used.
But it was disbanded, and it was just a Continental Navy. So anyways, semantics. I know I get caught up on them, but I thought that was very weird. That you wouldn't
very literal
choose.
Girl. Very literal girl.
Ma'am. I thought that it was very weird, though, that they chose that date. Anyways.
We discussed this the other day.
Yes. In our last episode, we discussed the burning of D.C., and we briefly talked about impressment, which was when the British were kidnapping American sailors to help them fight against France, and how the U.S. was in desperate need for sailors during the War of 1812 to protect ports and prevent the British from destroying them. During this time is when the USS Constitution was a part of the American fleet.
Which you can actually go and tour in Boston Harbor.
Yes.
And my brother got to tour, and he got to go into places that the public does not get to go into because he is official. He is a sailor, which is pretty stinking awesome, and I was very jealous. Continue.
If the USS Constitution does not sound familiar to you, then you might know it by the ship's nickname, which is Old Ironsides. So a lot of times it'll be referred to as that in a lot of different texts. This is one of the oldest commissioned warships still afloat today. I can't go through everything that the Navy has done simply because we don't have enough time. As I said before, Patreon, episodes, history, you know the drill. But we have to stop there because we are already 40 minutes into this recording and we still got a lot to go through. So
we know lots of things, guys.
Yes. I said at the top of the episode that there are roughly 42 ships missing or presumed lost by the Navy. The first was the USS Pickering. It was built in Newbury, Massachusetts in 1798. The Pickering was 178 tons and had a 77-foot topsail. August 20th of 1800, the Pickering was seen leaving Newcastle, Delaware, en route to the West Indies, and it was never seen again.
Wah, wah.
It is assumed a hurricane which overtook Florida to the Bahamas is what caused the ship to go missing. This hurricane took place on September 20th, just 1 month after the Pickering was last seen. There was a newspaper report in December of the same year that stated seeing a, quote, large copper-bottomed brig with quarter boards and a range of ports seen bottom upwards.
Ooh,
once
no
the
good.
hurricane had passed. There's a possibility it could be the Pickering, but there isn't any definitive proof that this is accurate.
Mm-hmm.
As of this recording in 2021, the location of the USS Pickering is still unknown. Next up, we have the USS Insurgent. This was a 1,726-ton ship. It was 148 feet long, outfitted with 36 gun ports. It was built for the French Navy at Lorient. Pretty sure. Maybe. Who knows? And officially...
pronunciations, girl.
I mean, whatever. Sue me. It officially set sail with the French Navy on April 27th of 1793. The original name of the ship was the L'Insurgente.
Nice.
Maybe. Who knows? Don't know. I'm not French. But once it was captured during a battle, the USS Constellation is the one that took it over and then sent it to the United States. It was repaired, purchased by the Continental Navy, and then that's when the name was changed to the USS Insurgent. The Insurgent left for the West Indies on July 22nd of 1800 under the command of Captain Patrick Fletcher.
Oh, Fletcher.
Our sweet Fletcher. He's laying at our feet right now. He's being a good boy.
He is a very good boy.
He's not letting his little toes click-clack like they usually do. The 227-man crew and the Insurgent were last seen on August 8th, leaving Norfolk, Virginia. The USS Insurgent is also assumed to have been swept away by the same hurricane that took the USS Pickering. Secretary of the Navy Robert Smith wrote to Congress in February of 1802 stating that both ships were lost in the, quote, equinoctial gale of September 1800. The USS Insurgent has also never been recovered as of this recording. Then we have gunboat number 7.
Gunboat number 7.
It was 71 feet long with two long 32-pounder guns launched. Yes, the ship launched on February 6th of 1805. It was dispatched to help with the Barbary pirates that we discussed before. The ship left New York on May 14th, but it had to return because the mast broke.
Ooh.
It arrived back on May 30th, and all but 3 sailors abandoned the ship.
Oh, that's not good.
So they had to reassemble a crew, and they left New York again on June 20th. So just 20 days later, they left. 9 other ships were also dispatched to help with the Barbary War and with pirates. And out of the 10 total, 8 made it to their destination. So 2 were unaccounted for.
I wonder if it was the 2 that decided to stay out of the original crew.
No, there were 10 boats that left, and only 8 of those boats made it.
My bad. So, I misunderstood.
One of those boats that did not make it, it did sink, and there's proof that it did sink. Mm-hmm. They are aware of that. But when gunboat number 7 left on June 20th of 1805, it wasn't seen again. Naval historian Edgar Stanton Maclay wrote in 1893 that, quote, "The fate of this gunboat only too plainly showed what a great risk the men who command and manned the other vessels of its class took when they sailed across the Atlantic in them." Mm-hmm. Again, as of this recording, it has not been found.
And I will say the ships that they sail now are so much larger, mm-hmm. and the technology is so much greater. I mean, yes, when my brother goes out and he is at sea, of course you worry about them because, mm-hmm. hey, they're in a ship at sea. But it's not.
They're quite a large target for anyone looking for them.
I mean, he's on a destroyer, so I mean, it's not like an aircraft carrier, which is a city.
Correct. Oh, yes, an aircraft carrier. An aircraft carrier, guys, are those ones that you see that are out on the ocean that they literally have planes taking off on them, and they have all of the planes like lined up down the top of the ship. That is an actual like carrier, and it is a city,
massive. Yes, it is a city in the sea. Yes, I mean, really, it really is. And a destroyer is a smaller mm-hmm. ship, but it's still,
quite
larger. Yeah, it's still larger, even though it's a smaller ship. Don't call it a boat; you'll get in big trouble.
Correct.
But just imagine these. I mean, even though they were large ships. They were wooden. They, mm-hmm. They
didn't have any, and they didn't. We'll get into it. They didn't have any real way to know where they were going.
I mean, and they navigated about the stars and such, but they, and my brother's area that he does, he's sonar, which is pretty stinking awesome. Like you could,
mm-hmm.
you can hear whales sometimes, which is pretty cool. But anyway, so just at that time, the technology just wasn't mm-hmm. there. So it was, I don't want to say primitive, but with the technology and things that we have now, it was more, it was mm-hmm. more primitive. So I just wanted to butt in and say that. So you can continue. I apologize.
I mean, you got to think about it. You get a map, you get a little telescope. You got the stars. And you got a crew that's depending on you.
I can't think of what the thing is called, but it's like, it's like a oh gosh, I'm thinking math stuff, but it's flat on one side and it's like a half circle, but it's by degrees, and it shows you the direction. I can't think of what it's called. There's a word for it, and like you use that to see where you're going, like, and you use that as well.
It's like a naval compass.
But there's a word for it, and I'm so ashamed that I can't think of what it is. But I mean, there were tools to use, but that's what you had. You don't, now you have GPS that can help you, know where you are now, and, you can pinpoint and you can radio, where you are to, to base or to whatever. I mean, we weren't able to communicate with my brother while he was on the ship. I mean, we could email with him, but we always loved him. He was able to get into port because he was able to connect with Wi-Fi, and praise the Lord for video chat and such, because, we were able to see his face. And when my dad was in the Navy,
a sextant.
There you go. Ding, 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 ding. But when my dad was in the Navy, I mean, they had to rely on letters. And, you didn't just get to call home because, I mean, that was expensive.
Yeah, it's a lot easier now, especially out on the, especially when, we have people who have been we're not political people. We're not getting into it.
No.
Especially when you have people like who have been over in Afghanistan, on and off tour. We know people who have gone off and have had to go to war and who have come back. And, while technology, it's still not 100% there and it's still not completely wonderful. People are able to speak to their families, but I mean, you're in, even still then you're in war zones. Things aren't super alive. The majority of the quote power that you're using to keep internet is going to be for, I'm sorry, but it's not for FaceTiming back home. You have certain things that have to be done during those times. And it's not, even now, I mean, it's not 100% reliable. But it's a little better.
Yes. I mean, you were just waiting on letters back then. And then way back at the time that we're talking, I mean, you were lucky to get a letter.
Mm-hmm. I mean, imagine that. You're like, this is where this needs to go. Maybe it'll get there.
Yeah.
You have no way of knowing if it's going to make it there or not. It's crazy. So
continue. I just wanted to kind of bring that up.
It is it's
amazing. Amazing.
So we are going to go into one more ship before we get to the USS Epervier, and that is the USS Wasp.
Ooh, I like it.
It was a 117-foot sloop of war, which we discussed what a sloop was before. It was a smaller boat, so it wasn't as large as, some of the others. It weighed 509 tons. It was built in Newburyport, Massachusetts. After a battle, the crew captured the HMS Atalanta, not Atlanta, and headed towards Savannah, Georgia. The Atalanta separated from the Wasp on September 22nd of 1814. The Atalanta reached Savannah by November, and the Wasp did not make it. September 22nd was the last official American sighting of the ship. At the beginning of 1815, several papers reported seeing the Wasp, and there was a rumor that it had been captured by the British. This was not true. And once the War of 1812 ended, it was clear the ship was not returning and it was lost. Because there were records as to what ships were captured by who, and, it was made clear that it was not caught.
Could you imagine those families holding out that hope?
I know. And then there's this part too. Several years later in 1825, a news article stated the Wasp had been taken by Barbary pirates off the coast of Africa. There were more rumors, but this time, survivors of a shipwreck showed up on the coast of Africa. This was never proven, and in a book written by Theodore Roosevelt, titled The Naval War of 1812, he said, quote, "How she perished, none ever knew. All that is certain is that she was never seen again." You can probably guess what I'm going to say next. As of this recording, it has never been found. I just want to make that clear because if for some off chance reason,
something
years
happens,
from now, somehow it's found, I don't want people to be like, it was found. Well, as of right now, it has not been. Nothing happened. And it's been over 200 years. So not real sure if it's going to be
things
found.
Can happen.
They could. So we'll see. Now, onward to the USS Epervier. The Epervier was built in 1813 in Rochester, England, for the Royal Navy. It was 389 tons, so it was not large at all. It had a 100-foot brig armed with 18 guns. I believe in this case, the brig is being referred to as the proper noun brig, which is a 2-mast square rig ship with an additional gaff sail on the main mast instead of the informal noun, which is the prison on a warship. So just not to confuse people between a brig and a brig. This is the brig ship. not the place on a boat called a brig.
Why would you confuse somebody with having?
I know. I don't know. Because when I saw it, I was like, why would they care that there was, and then I looked and I was like, oh, that makes sense.
Why do that to people?
I know. Also, we will refer to the Epervier as she a lot going forward because that's how it is done in a lot of research. And there's a reason that ships are considered females. Because early sailors were very aware of how powerful Mother Nature is, and they wanted to please her and honor her in some way. So all of the ships are she. The sailors believed if they did this, then Mother Nature would guide and protect the vessel and crew. So that is why all ships are female.
Interesting.
So in case anybody ever wondered that, back to the very early times, they started all boats, ships, all of them are female. So
interesting.
In case you ever wanted to know, now you know. She was, she was well-known ship due to her career on the sea, capturing American merchant ships up to April of 1814. But when she left Havana, Cuba, on April 29th of 1814 to go to Halifax, Nova Scotia, she was captured by, and this will be Leah's favorite ship from here on out, the USS Peacock.
That's my favorite bird.
So just off Cape Canaveral in Florida, in which if a lot of you don't know where Cape Canaveral is, the easiest, best way to tell you where Cape Canaveral is it is semi-close to Orlando and Disney World.
There you go.
Because if you ever go to take a cruise or a ship out, if you're going to leave out of, for like a Disney cruise, all of them leave from Cape Canaveral. So if you're ever wondering, that's kind of the best way to tell you semi where it is. Not exact, but it's close-ish. It's in the state of Florida. So close enough. Yeah. So she was then taken to Savannah to dock and put under the command of Lieutenant John Nicholson. Once she was repaired and officially a part of the U.S. Navy, she set sail to help fight against the Shah of Algiers and his pirate attacks on American ships. Shah is actually spelled D-E-Y, and it is what the governor of Algiers was referred to up until 1830. So the Shah of Algiers is the governor of Algiers.
Well, there you go.
The Epervier joined in June of 1815 and fought two battles which led to the capture of two Algerian warships.
Okay, quick question. They didn't change the name of the ship when they...
It went from the HMS Epervier to the USS Epervier.
Okay, so they just changed the beginning.
Yeah, and with the Insurgent, they did the same thing. It was like El Insurgente, and it was the HMS, and then when the US took it, that's where it goes from Epervier to Epervier, because we're English. So that's,
I was just wondering if it didn't completely change it.
A lot of them that were taken during that time, it was easier and cheaper for them to just change it from HMS to USS.
Like my shelter dogs, who are adorable and just a lot at the same time. New life, new names.
Yes.
Like Gator and Alfie. No, their names are Leonard and Sheldon. New life, new name.
So they... Yes, so the Epervier did not change its name.
Okay. I was just curious about that.
So the Shah of Algiers agreed to, quote, I put this in quotes, sue for peace, which is an act by a warring party to initiate peace proceedings. So it's basically the white flag. That is a sue for peace, is the white flag of, hey, we're going to initiate peace proceedings from here forward. The USS Epervier was given the task of taking the peace treaty and the flags captured during the battle back to the United States. There was a crew of 132 sailors, 2 Marines, and 3 naval officers. The ship passed the Strait of Gibraltar on July 14th of 1815, and she was never seen again.
Oh.
Some people say they thought they saw her near Charleston, South Carolina on August 9th, but it's been reported that it was likely the act of gale force winds that took out the ship. But is that really what happened to her?
Dun, dun, dun.
The Bermuda Triangle, also known as the Devil's Triangle, the Limbo of the Lost, or the Hoodoo of the Sea.
The Hoodoo of the Sea.
I really like that one.
I do too.
I also like Limbo of the Lost. I like all the names for it. I like Limbo of the Lost, the Devil's Triangle. It's just, they all sound so like, they all sound so mysterious. But it's a section of the Atlantic Ocean roughly outlined by the areas of Miami to Bermuda and to Puerto Rico. So that's why we're going over this week, guys, because technically within like the U.S. boundaries of the sea, the Bermuda Triangle's mostly in it because, you know, Puerto Rico is a U.S. territory and goes from Miami to Puerto Rico to Bermuda.
We have a friend from Puerto Rico, and she is fabulous.
We do have a friend from Puerto Rico.
She's one of my favorite people.
She's wonderful. So I tried finding out the exact number of vessels, whether via sea or air, who have gone missing in the triangle. And there isn't an exact number, but a minimum of 50 ships and 20 planes have disappeared in the area without a trace. That is at a minimum that I could find that people were actually willing to report. And we'll get into why that could be a larger issue. The United States government, which here's issue number 1, does not recognize the Bermuda Triangle as a location or a geographical threat. So, what could the Bermuda Triangle be? What makes the Bermuda Triangle so mysterious? Well, our lovely website from 30A gave us a nice list of things to go off of, and these are the theories. Some of this, they do make a lot of sense. Some of them, complete nonsense. I'll let you decide. Not you, Leah, but collective, you, the listener. First up, you have methane gas, which is a colorless, odorless gas that occurs in nature. This is what, you know, comes off of gas ovens, water heaters, automobiles, those different kinds of things. You're going to have methane gas that comes off of them. Researchers at Arctic University of Norway had found massive underwater craters off the coast of Norway, which is considered, quote, probably a cause of enormous blowouts of gas. It is probable that ships could suddenly sink if the water turned into foam.
Oh, dear.
The theory wasn't actually presented until 1981, when geochemist Richard McIver found this connection and said that natural methane gas formed out of decomposed organic debris can get trapped inside. I know this is a lot of science, guys, but it can get trapped inside of methane hydrates, which is the sediment in the deeper ocean floor. These hydrates are mostly in permafrost areas. So once they get to the lower portions of the ocean where it gets colder, that's where these are likely to be formed. The temperature and pressure below the bottom of the sea is conductive and can turn methane gas into icy crystals. Landslides in the sea floor can break and quickly sink due to the methane, which can reduce the density of the water, which would then make the water turn to foam.
Well, I mean, his name is MacGyver, so
MacIver, not MacGyver.
Oh, I thought you said MacGyver, and I'm like, well, number one, that gives him a lot of credibility. Credibility in my book. I'm just saying.
MacIver.
Okay, so not as much credibility.
But yes, so what he's saying is that these icy crystals underneath. So
it's like you take the rug out from underneath them,
right?
Basically.
And a landslide occurs underneath the water, which would then release methane gases. And once, I mean, like you've seen how foam can come to the top of the ocean with just a lot of boats coming through and things like that. So this is a massive amount of foam that is coming to the top. So imagine for a moment sailing on a boat on the water. And then from the sea, you unknowingly transition into sea foam. Well, foam isn't buoyant like water, and it deteriorates quickly when touched by outside mass. So
I'm never getting on a boat again.
When the foam is gone, the water then envelops the area where the foam was located. So if the ship falls into a sea, we'll call it a sea valley, and then that valley is filled with water, the ship will automatically sink.
Yeah.
Because it's coming in from the top, and it's, it's just like, it's a valley. It's filling back up with water.
So my husband gets his wish. We don't have to go on a cruise.
So, well, there hasn't been a cruise ship that's gone missing in the Bermuda Triangle. So who knows?
What's my luck?
The next, look, Leah, there are much larger things than sea foam to worry yourself about in this area. Such as a wormhole.
Oh, gosh.
So
not a wormhole.
There is a wormhole theory from the science fiction community that says there is a space-time shortcut that can allow for time travel, and the ship is sucked into the wormhole. There is no proof yet that wormholes exist, but it would make sense as to why some of the boats are never found. Because they're not found again. And you can search that area, but the boats are never found. So why wouldn't they be found? It's very weird. Then we have water spouts, which are real and terrifying because it's basically a tornado in the ocean. Unlike wormholes, water spouts have been seen, and they suck water up from the ocean hundreds to thousands of feet into the air. The Gulf Stream is a current that runs right along the edge of the Bermuda Triangle and up the eastern coast of the United States. So imagine it going from essentially the tip of Florida up the coast, right?
Yeah, but wouldn't they be seen again if they were? I mean, I can poke a hole in that.
This is something different, though. So this current can generate waves that are hundreds of feet high. Hundreds of feet high for waves. So they are so high that if there were a low flying plane, these waves could knock the plane out of the sky. You're not listening.
I'm listening to you.
It can knock
a
plane out of the sky.
I hear you, but wouldn't you find the wreckage?
You may not. Because if a water spout is out there and one of these high waves catches a plane, which is then caught by a water spout that is thousands of feet up into the air going who knows where, you never find it. You have no clue where it is.
Well, depending on the size of the plane, too, if it's a little bitty plane. I am listening.
There are larger planes who have gone out there.
I'm thinking, I'm absorbing.
There are larger planes who have gone out there that have also gone missing, which is...
But there would be pieces.
Not all of the time. Depends on where the pieces go. It depends on how... I mean, you've seen houses when they go through a tornado, so imagine water being in that tornado that's also destroying and moving things at the same time. We've seen what a tornado can do. And that's just on land. I mean, we've seen what a hurricane can do. And this is something completely different that we've never seen, like on land. So there's no telling what it'll do out there. But the edge of the Bermuda Triangle is a perfect formulation to where these waves can get that high, and you have water spouts that can be common in the area to carry it away. So lots of issues.
Makes more sense than a stinking wormhole.
I don't know. This one makes sense too.
That's some hoodoo right there. Hoodoo.
No, I don't know. I'm just saying it's very weird that you can't find anything. And there's no proof yet that wormholes don't exist. I'm just saying Stephen Hawking had definitive proof that there were wormholes out in the... I mean, I'm just saying there is scientific research that has backing to it. Next, we are on to electromagnetic forces of the Earth. The triangle is one of the few places on Earth that compasses cannot easily find true north.
I have heard that.
So, with pilots and sailors, depending on instruments to keep them, on track, this can be a major issue. And it can prevent them from knowing which direction they are going, and you could get turned around. Imagine you're flying. You don't really have a whole lot to go off of, or you're sailing. Sure. You don't have a lot, you're not flying over, a mass of Earth where you can say, okay, we are over this area right now. You're just over the ocean. So you get you don't really know which way's up, which way's north, south, and you kind of get turned around.
Curious. Do we know if more have been lost during day or nighttime?
There's not any, because there's not any true, no one's willing to say how much have gone missing there. And because we don't know, there is some proof as to when some of them have gone missing. Some of them have been more towards dusk hours that I have found, but there's so many that are out there. It's not really known as to when they went missing because they lose communication. And then because of those electromagnetic forces, they'll lose communication and they don't know exactly when the ship or plane went down after that because there's no communication to be had. Even recent-ish.
Well, the reason I ask is because, I know I'm going back to a cartoon, but this is the way that they actually do it. In Moana, they use their hands to guide them with the stars, and so you don't have to have a compass for that. So I would just wonder if it's more daytime that people get lost because they don't have the stars to guide them. It's just a thought.
However, think of this as well. This area, much like we have now, is a high traffic area for hurricanes and things like that.
This is true.
Most of the time, you're going to have more cloudy conditions than you are going to have clear conditions. Whereas in areas, of Hawaii or in more tropical areas, you are going to have a more clear vision of the sky. So there's that too.
I'm just, putting my thoughts out there.
It could be just human error. I find that that's a lot of human error. But the triangle is known to have many islands that can all look alike if you are not paying attention.
Sure.
It's not that there's there's, this very, very large island over here. And then there's this, they all kind of look the same. Mm-hmm. So you can't really tell where you're going either. The best example of this is from 1945. When 5 torpedo bombers went missing under the leadership of Lieutenant Charles Taylor. He was believed to be hungover, and he had previously lost his way before and had gotten off of course at different times.
How about don't drink when don't get drunk, just,
Correct.
But especially if you're, going to be leading some people on, missions.
They've never been found. None of them.
How about stay sober? So then, I'm sorry that people got lost. I am, but stay sober.
Well, and there's no really time. He wasn't drunk. He was hungover, which still isn't great, but who knows? I would not put someone in charge of a group of people who had gotten off course before on different occasions.
Exactly.
That's just me.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
It's possible there's not a mystery at all. And that this is more of, and a lot of people may know what this is, but it's more of the Mandela effect. And it's one of those things that people talk about and the story just kind of grows.
Sure.
the triangle is a high traffic area for pilots and sailors, and just by the law of averages, it's not inconceivable that people would crash. To my point, though, where did they go? Why can you not find them? And if we have so many different, ways of tracking, why is the Bermuda Triangle still being blamed for some people going missing and we can't find them? It doesn't make sense to me. I would think that if you have a high traffic area where it's said that a lot of people have gone missing and people go missing in that high traffic area, you would be able to at least try to find them.
Or maybe not take that route anymore. Just make it not a high traffic area. I'm just saying, I might try to go the long way around.
So we have one last explanation to get to.
Am I going to like it?
Aliens.
Oh, my stars.
We don't really need any further explanation on that. That is that is the last theory of the Bermuda Triangle, is that aliens. So keep in mind, so I told Leah about this Amazon documentary I watched. It messed me up. I don't know the name of it. I don't want to think about it right now. I mentally cannot put my mind there again. I don't like when things are too logical. Anyways, it was a problem. I was researching this as I was watching that. So I'm watching that and I'm researching this and I'm like, I can't handle this right now.
She recounted it to me.
This is too much. Hey, it's very weird. Anyways, also, like I said,
I told her she was my weird friend, but her weirdness was part of her charm.
Guys, though, it's too weird. Anyway,
it's part of why I love her.
But Leah makes me sound like a wackadoo. It's not one of those things.
She's not a wackadoo.
It was something that makes too much sense when it was laid out in this way to not be true. And it did not necessarily have to do with aliens. It just dealt with technology and why technology.
And a lot of things that you said did make sense.
It's very
the explanations were very good. And I will say that.
It's very scary. But I was watching that as I was working on this.
Not necessarily explaining aliens themselves.
No. It was explaining a lot of different things of like why people might have thought that they've seen UFOs. And,
exactly.
And it was anyways, it was very different.
Just so y'all don't think that I'm believing that there are aliens among us.
No, we're not saying that. We're just saying, who really knows?
Yes, I just wanted to be clear on that.
So, as for the USS Epervier, it's unknown whatever happened to her, but she was most likely lost in this area. The massive crew and the ship have never been recovered. There is
That is sad.
It is very sad. This is a large crew. That was on that ship. So there is some misinformation about the Epervier that I want to go ahead and make sure that if you do go look at any sources, I go ahead and get rid of some of these thoughts. Some will say that she was carrying the peace proposals for the War of 1812, and due to her going missing, the end of the war didn't occur until much later. This is not the case, as we discussed before, because it was the treaty with the Day of Algiers that she was carrying, not the treaty for the War of 1812. But some people will give some, and there are a lot of sites that give that misinformation, but she was not the one that was actually carrying that. Because those peace proposals did make it to the United States, so why would she have them if she went missing? It doesn't make sense.
Right.
So I know this is, a little different than what we've done before, but disappearance and mysteries are fun, and we haven't talked about the U.S. Navy a lot, so I thought that would be a good one. So last couple things.
And we appreciate all of our military.
Yes, we do.
Very much for the sacrifices that you have made and the families. Because
we both come from families who have been in the military. Leah's is more Navy, mine is Air Force. So we definitely understand how that works and
we get
how
it
difficult
and we
it can be. Yes, we do. So last 2 tidbits of information. 1, not knowing how eels reproduce.
So if you do know, please send it to Kayla.
There is a theory. Trust me, I've watched videos on it. No one has any clear answer.
There may be somebody that does, Kayla.
Have you met my boyfriend? He's gonna find out if there's an answer.
I'm just saying.
And I researched it up and down. There's a lot of different things. Anyways, one of the theories of how eels reproduce is that most eels come from the Bermuda Triangle.
Oh my gosh.
And that's just really just one answer for it. They don't really know how it happens. But
they just come from the wormhole. They're really worms, not
eels.
Eels
Don't have reproductive organs, which is why this is an issue. Anyways, where are they coming from?
Like Cotton Eye Joe. Where'd you come from?
I don't know. It's very scary. So, last thing. Tidbit to put in relating to Aaron Burr.
Sir.
His daughter, Theodosia Burr Alston, boarded a boat named the Patriot in 1812. And she was never seen again.
Aww.
The Patriot did sink in January of 1813, and it is known where it sank. So it is not one that has gone missing or, they're not really sure what happened to it. It's very clear of where it sank and what happened.
There were no survivors.
But it did dock at some point, and it was never made clear if she deboarded or if she was still on the boat when it sank.
Oh, so maybe she wanted to disappear because she was tired of being
It's
linked.
A possibility. I mean,
I wouldn't blame her.
I wouldn't either. I mean,
that's sad. That's very sad.
One thing that I was thinking, like we said, we did see Hamilton. And one thing that I was thinking while we were watching it is, Hamilton and Burr, they were at odds with each other most of their life. But we've discussed in our part 2 on the Duel in Weehawken that Aaron Burr was very, very intelligent. He was very bright. He was one of the youngest people to ever go to Princeton College and graduate. He came from a really good background. And it's like one of those things where people I hate to say it this way, but this is the best way that I can say it. And a lot of people understand what I mean if they were like me in high school. A lot of people, they show,
What are you trying to say?
We'll just say this. The popular kids in high school do not always stay the popular kids later on in life.
They peak in school.
So a lot of, and we do have a lot of listeners who are younger. And so not to be like, we know more, because that annoys me so bad. But
it is a truth.
It is true that when the people who typically are the more, popular kids in high school, or it's not always the case, but there are some that they peak in high school, and after high school, high school was a great time for them. And after, they just kind of don't do a whole lot else. They just kind of, typically they stay away in high school. They're the ones that are real big into going to their reunion. Like they're the ones that plan it. They're the ones that.
Hey, now I planned.
You went to a very small high school.
I did go
There's
to a
big
very small
difference.
high school.
I went to a very large high school.
We had a pretty close group.
Yeah, we did not. And I think Aaron Burr peaked in high school. And I think Hamilton was the one who kept his head down and then started to do more after. And so it's kind of like they hit like an X. Like Burr started at the top, Hamilton was at the bottom, and then at some point they kind of crossed paths, and then Hamilton, like he said in the thing, like Hamilton continued to rise, and Burr just kind of slowly kept going down.
But I also think that Burr felt like he had so much that he was supposed to do because he felt like his parents expected that of him, and because they weren't there, he had to prove that he could do what his parents expected of him because they weren't there. I feel like he had that chip on his shoulder that he placed there himself.
I don't think so.
I do. I feel like that was part
Aaron
of
Burr's
him.
parents died too young for him to remember anything about them.
But I think he placed that on his own shoulder because he was told that about his parents, is what I'm saying.
From everything that I read and researched about him, it seems as though the chip on his shoulder came from being placed with the uncle who was abusive. And that he felt as though he had to rise above that situation in his life. Because he did not know his father. His father died before he was 1. Then his mom, his grandfather, and all of that, they all died within the same year of one another, and he never really knew who they were. It seems that, yes, he possibly put unrealistic expectations on himself. Mm-hmm. I think what is likely is that he accomplished too much at a young age, and he was always chasing after the next thing he was supposed to do.
Very possible, just to keep doing more and more and better just to show that he could. I agree.
I think that's a possibility. I think he thought that there was, there's like those people that they're always chasing after the next big thing for themselves.
They are never satisfied.
Never. Ooh. And so, just a lot of interesting things that go on with that. So that's our case this week of the disappearance of the USS Epervier and how she went missing, most likely in the Bermuda Triangle. And what could have also happened with all of, the other things that went missing there. Who knows what it is? We will eventually know one day, maybe, before the earth just cracks open and swallows us whole.
Wow.
I mean,
I do not like that.
If we're not nice to the earth, she might. We don't know what she's capable of.
I did not like that. Take that back. Tooey.
I'm just saying, you don't know. You don't know the future. So that's that. And hopefully y'all appreciated it. Hopefully y'all got to learn a little bit more about the U.S. Navy and how it got its start. Like I said, we didn't go through all of it because we don't have the time.
Nope.
So, that's that.
Hope you enjoyed it.
I hope y'all liked it. As we said at the top, leave us a 5-star review. You will get a nice sticker from us. We would greatly appreciate it. And we have a website where you can find any and all ONUC information your heart desires. It's onenationundercrime.com. We are One Nation Under Crime on Facebook and Instagram. We're not real active on Facebook, to be honest, guys. We're way more active on Instagram and Twitter. So go there, really, if you want to see the most from us. If you love our podcast as much as we do, please follow us and recommend us to your friends, family, strangers, aliens, who knows, ghosts, whoever you want to speak with. If you have an eel that is a friend of yours, let them know. We need to spread awareness of the eel population. And
ask them how they reproduce, because it really bothers Kayla. It keeps her up at night.
Look, this could be a really good way for us to find out. Leave us a 5-star review, as I said before, anywhere that you find them. But really, mostly, guys, please, please, please go to Apple Podcasts. That's, for some weird reason, that's like the one place that a lot of people pull analytics from, them and Spotify. So just go do that if you could for us. We do have a Patreon if you would like to help with the cost of making and hosting the show. We thank you guys so much for joining us again for another fun-filled week of One Nation Under Crime. We will see you here, same time, different crime, next week. And remember, there isn't always liberty and justice for all. We will see you guys again next week. Goodbye.
Bye.